Ryan told you earlier, this is new this year. Teams can sign their own free agents, have these deals done before the start of free agency at 6 Eastern time. Max Christie is back with the Lakers on a 4-year, $32 million contract, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. Second-round pick. So this is one of those cases where being a second-rounder, Ryan, really pays off.
It does, and this is the mini version of what Philadelphia is doing with Tyrese Maxey. He has a low salary cap hold, about a $2.3 million cap hold, so I strongly believe the Lakers will do other business and then do this at the back end, to preserve their ability to go sign Klay Thompson, something like that. But good for Max Christie as a second-round pick. Either it could go one of two ways, right? Either you can play well and monetize it and stay in the league for a while, which he did, or you can be out of the league pretty quickly because you don't have the long-term guarantees that first-round picks usually get. So the Lakers, continue to run it back, which is why I'm fascinated to see what LeBron James does. Does he actually take close to $20 million less to bring in Klay Thompson? If not, guys, they're going to have to make a move. They're going to have to send somebody out to gain flexibility if LeBron wants either his full max, which is north of $50 million a year, or even close to it. Lakers are going to have to do some more wheeling and dealing. So I'll be fascinated to see how it ends up because as you look up and down the roster, and this is another aspect of the Bronny James situation, and Bronny reportedly not wanting to take a two-way contract, there aren't many roster spots either. So forget about the salary. You can only have 15 guys in season. So the Lakers have some difficult decisions to make unless LeBron takes significantly less, and they can use that non-taxpayer mid-level at $12.8 million to land a stud. If they do that, then life gets easier in LA.
GA, assuming the Lakers can do what Ryan suggested earlier and maybe move a couple of less desirable contracts to somebody like Detroit who can take them on, and assuming they can't get Paul George or somebody of that ilk, and there are only so many of those guys out there, what should they be looking for in terms of a free agent who could take up some of that money that LeBron James may be willing to give up?
Well, I think first, there are a couple issues they have. One is shooting. I mean, they still obviously need to address their ability to shoot the basketball, space the floor. So that's where the Klay Thompson makes a lot of sense. But they do have pieces that I think are movable. You think about a Vanderbilt, a Prince. I don't know what they do with Gabe Vincent because he was injured all last year. Maybe they keep him. But again, these aren't huge numbers, but they're the kinds of numbers that will give you some flexibility to move. They're not bad players and they're not bad contracts. And so I do think that allows you for the opportunity to maybe make some smaller deals to set yourself up to be able to go out and get a frontline kind of a player. And so I think that's ultimately what you're going to see their front office try to do. I think they have to. The other aspect of this is also you got to get a sense of J.J. Redick as a coach philosophically, what players fit and what don't. Because the reality is he may like what they have. He's going to come in with a completely different philosophy of how they want to play. And a lot of times when you watch them play, I just felt like they had a lot of guys that weren't value adds for stretches on the floor. And I think that's something that they've got to look at. What fits best around Davis and around LeBron out there? How can we maximize those two guys? Because their front-end talent is good enough to win with. It's just the roster construct that they have that's really kind of strangling them right now. And so they've got to mesh his philosophy with the personnel, and that's what we're going to get to see play out here over the next few weeks.
And from a trade perspective, guys, they have 5 players making between essentially $11 and $19 million. D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, Gabe Vincent, and Jared Vanderbilt. Not horrible contracts. Reeves has the most value, I think, of that grouping. Those are potentially tradable deals. But from a roster spot perspective, they do have some issues because a couple of their end-of-the-roster players, Cam Reddish and Jackson Hayes, they picked up their player options. They opted in. So I think, I don't want to be too repetitive, but the Lakers need to keep going. They need to continue to make moves with Bronny James on the roster, with Maxi Christie coming back and Dalton Connect coming in. I thought he was one of the better first-round picks in that 18 slot out of Tennessee. They have a number of players. They don't have much flexibility, so we'll see if they can trade one of those guys, and that would alleviate a lot of things, not only in terms of just financial, Greg, but also in terms of, roster spots and letting J.J. Redick put his stamp on things. Because I think an optimist would say, well, this team did go to the conference finals 2 years ago, right? With essentially the same group. But then we saw what happened last year. And I think the debate is this just a Denver Nuggets problem where the Lakers don't match up with Denver, the team that's beaten them 2 years in a row, once in the conference finals, once in the first round? Or is it a larger roster issue in the construction of it, problem? And that remains to be seen. But yeah, J.J. Redick as a new head coach is going to have a pretty similar roster to what Darvin Ham had at the end of last season.
And the Nuggets still exist. So unless there's some news I'm not aware of, the Nuggets are still out there for them to deal with in the playoffs. The shooting thing is the obvious one to me for the Lakers. Dalton Knecht maybe addresses some of that, but he's a rookie.
Yeah.
He's an older rookie, but he's a rookie.
Yeah, and that's the reality. He's still a rookie. He has not gone through the rigors of an NBA season, and you don't have the trust yet. And will he have the same impact as a shooter? We've seen a lot of guys come in as shooters who really struggled because the game's a lot faster. It's a lot more athletic. I really like what I saw from him in college, and I think as a pick with the 18th pick, I think it's a great get. But it doesn't mean he's necessarily even going to be ready to impact winning this season. So that's something else that you got to utilize and think about as you put this roster together.
Let alone winning in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, that's another thing.
Can you actually juggle in real life?
No, not at all. Yeah. Maybe 2 balls. That's about it.
That's not juggling.
No. You pass one over and throw it up.
I think by definition that is.
I can trick my kids. That's about it.
I think a real juggler would laugh at you.
Yeah,
they'd be insulted.
Yeah,
they would be insulted.
It's a minimum 3. Can you juggle?
A little bit, yeah.
I can do the basic.
Yeah, I can do 3. Yeah, I can. Yeah.
You know why? In a basketball camp, somebody said it was good for hand-eye coordination, so I taught myself to juggle when I was 12.
I like
Did
that.
not pay off in any way, basketball-wise.
Yeah. Well, covering basketball. So
I don't know if it's helping.
that.
I'm not sure it's helping there either, but I can still do it. So you heard this week, Mikal Bridges joins the collection of Villanova alums populating the New York Knicks roster. Big deal, which included, 5 first-round draft picks going back the other way as Brooklyn reloads after giving up all the picks they did for Durant, etc. And now the Nova Knicks are a better team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, people get caught up in all these draft picks. The reality is the Knicks, from a salary standpoint, they don't want any more picks. I mean, they're not going to be drafted in the top 5. So, in essence, if you're going to be one of the 5 to 8 best teams in our league, that first-round salary you'd be better served to have in a veteran experienced player that can help you win now. And that's what this roster has. I mean, bringing him in, they probably got the best bookend wing defenders with Anunoby and Bridges in the league, plus the durability that Bridges brings to the table, his shooting. The other thing I love about him is he's what I call a complementary star. Meaning he's not a guy that you run your offense through, but for stretches he can carry you. And his ability to play without the basketball, I think, invaluable. Factoring in the chemistry that he brings along with it as well. And I feel like the Knicks quietly have probably positioned themselves better than any other team in the league when it comes to competing against the Boston Celtics, because that's ultimately going to have to go up against. If this group is healthy, I think they are positioned very nicely moving forward.
Well, he really opened some eyes when he got to Brooklyn as well in terms of his own shot creation, because he was never asked to do that as a Phoenix Sun, where he was basically a 3-and-D guy and someone on the wing waiting for a pass to launch. The question goes to you, are the Knicks the team best positioned to take on the Celtics in the East if Philadelphia lands Paul George?
I think it's still the Knicks. You put up the depth chart there a minute ago. They have 7 or 8 very good players who all complement each other well and want to play together. And that's where I think the Villanova connection in particular is so important. Mikal Bridges wanted to be a New York Knick, even though it's a lesser role. As we know, there are players in the NBA who want to be a star and have it all about them. Bridges is all about winning. I know that. We traded for the guy on draft night in Phoenix in 2018, and I texted with him the other day. He's extremely excited to go across the bridge and play in Manhattan. He is extension eligible 6 months from now, so I think he's going to be a Knick for a long time. And Greg made a great point about their wing defenders. Everybody looks at the champion as chasing the champions. Well, if you're going to beat the Boston Celtics, you need somebody to at least try to slow down both of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They have other good players too, obviously, with Holiday and White. New York has the kind of roster where they can match up. Maybe not at the high end with the star power, but with the depth. This team was second last year in the Eastern Conference. They almost made it to the conference final despite a number of injuries. And I think they're even better. We'll see what happens with Isaiah Hartenstein. If they can re-sign him, that would be huge. It's going to be difficult, but this is a loaded team, especially on the perimeter. And we know one thing: they're going to have great chemistry, and those guys are going to play hard because they all wanted to be on the same team.
I was going to say that's the one concern I have if they cannot re-sign Hartenstein, because he kind of completes them. The other issue is that Mitchell Robinson's health, and availability, right? He has missed a significant amount of games with injury. Terrific rebounder, rim protector, screener. But if he's not out there, it really hurts you. And Hartenstein really has also developed great chemistry, understands how to play with this group, does a terrific job of what I call spacing the paint. He really finds cracks on the interior to make himself available for his teammates, a terrific finisher in traffic as well. And so I think if he's on the roster, I think they're the team best suited. I think without him, it becomes a little bit more of a crapshoot, because you got to assume that Robinson's going to miss 25, 30 games, and that could be the difference in terms of seeding and ultimately whether or not you have a chance to get to the conference final.
All right, we've got some news on a free agent staying put. Again, whole different animal. Still the